So back in, I'd say 2010, met what ends up being a really good client and friend of mine who was a tough guy, successful guy, didn't want to hire me, gave me every reason not to hire me. And the goal of this gentleman, he wanted to take his money and generate better cash flow than he was getting at this building. It was a 25,000 square foot office building, 2 stories. You had some ground floor retail, not enough parking for medical use. And I found a surgeon, so 2 doctors that wanted to build a surgery center here. And I enlisted the help of a land use specialist. And we were able to obtain medical use and build out a full surgery center at this property. This was an interesting transaction because it was challenging. When we got to the closing or the finality of this transaction, interestingly enough, seller was thrilled because he was able to get out of a troubled asset at the time that was underperforming. And the buyer was ecstatic because we were able to obtain a use that we didn't think was available and sell him a building that he still works out of to this day. My business is focused on understanding the wants and needs of all the parties involved. So it just happens that I sell real estate, but my goal and focus is to connect with the people and understand what their drivers are. And once I understand, oh, this is interesting. This right here is the first property I ever sold. All right, so we're gonna go look at a building we sold back in 2015 for $8 million. It was a 27,000 square foot office building. At the time it was completely vacant. And we ended up selling it to an owner-user buyer that uses the entire building to run their autism company. They help autistic children. So that was a pretty exciting sale. At the time, it was a record-breaking sale. It was the highest price per square foot for an office building that was sold along Ventura Blvd. All right, so we ended up selling this building at the time. It was a record-breaking sale along Ventura Blvd. The interesting thing about this transaction, and really what we try and focus on, both parties left this transaction happy. The seller, even though this was a challenging transaction from start to finish, a lot of items came up that we had to navigate through. He was extremely happy at the close of escrow, as was the buyer, even though in retrospect, they paid a very aggressive price for this building. They were thrilled with the transaction as well. So the sign of a good transaction from my perspective is both parties, while moving along the way, end up happy at the end of the transaction. So that's the goal. It doesn't happen every time, but that's the goal.